It is called Lothric, where the transitory lands of the Lords of Cinder converge. In venturing north, the pilgrims discover the truth of the old words. The fire fades, and the lords go without thrones. When the link of fire is threatened, the bell tolls, unearthing the old lords of Cinder from their graves. Aldrich, saint of the deep, Farron's undead legion, the Abyss Watchers. And the reclusive lord of the profaned capital, Yom the Giant. Only in truth, the lords will abandon their thrones. And the unkindled will rise. Nameless, accursed undead.
In a world
unfit
ravaged
even
by
to be
decay and
Cinder.
curse, the Ashen Lords awaken. The nameless
so it
player,
is.
who did, is called to fulfill their destiny. They must gather the 5 ashes and link the first flame, prolonging the Age of Fire. However, hidden truth emerges. The cycle of fire and darkness is a prison. The Lords, like Aldrich, Ahorn, Abyss Watchers, and Lothric, have their own purposes. Little is known about the origin of the Abyss Watchers. They are disciples of the legendary knight Artorias, who faced the Abyss itself. The Abyss Watchers were corrupted by the Abyss, a dark and consuming force. They became guardians and hunters of the darkness, encountered in the Farron Keep, a swampy area filled with abominations. They perpetually fight among themselves, trapped in an eternal cycle. When the nameless player faces them, the Abyss Watchers seem to battle each other. However, as the fight intensifies, the main leader infuses his sword with fire, making his attacks even deadlier. The Abyss Watchers inherit Artorias' legacy, the hero who faced the Abyss in the past. They carry his sword and strive to keep the darkness at bay. The leader of the Abyss Watchers is one of the Ashen Lords, whose soul is needed to prolong the Age of Fire. Ahorn is descended from an ancient conqueror and ruler of the profaned capital. His lineage destined him to lead, but he also carried a curse. The once grand profaned capital was in decline. Ahorn took the throne to protect his people, but the city sank into darkness. Ahorn became one of the Ashen Lords, absorbing the profane flames to prolong the Age of Fire. However, his choice had devastating consequences. The Lord made a pact with Siegmeyer of Katarina, a loyal friend. He promised to protect the city and its people. Ahorn wields a massive sword capable of mass destruction. He used it to confront the Abyss and invaders. The giant lived in isolation, tormented by his decisions. He hoped Siegmeyer would return to fulfill the promise. When the nameless player reaches the profaned capital, Ahorm faces his destiny. The battle is epic, but Ahorm is weary of fighting. The nameless player defeats Ahorm, releasing him from his burden. The giant sword falls, and the city collapses.
Aldrich was originally a cleric of the Way of White, hailing from Irithyll of the Boreal Valley.
However, his true nature was depraved.
He reveled in devouring humans and hearing their agonizing screams.
His body swelled with the horrors he committed, turning into a melted and rotten mass.
The powerful pontiff Sullivan recognized the threat Aldrich posed and exiled him, imprisoning him in the Cathedral of the Deep.
This church specialized in rituals of purification against stagnant darkness.
While imprisoned, Aldrich had visions of an era of the deep sea where human souls would sink into the depths and become chains binding the world. He reached a level of darkness rarely accessed by humans, known as the Deep. Aldrich continued to feed on humans, growing in power.
The Way of White chose him as the next Ashen Lord, not for his dignity, but for the power he held.
Archdeacons MacDonald and Royce oversaw the constant flow of sacrifices to him.
The nameless player encounters Aldrich in the Cathedral of Aina Londo, facing his grotesque form of rotting flesh, remnants of the victims he consumed. The battle is epic and challenging. Defeating Aldrich frees him from his corruption, but the world bears the scars of his actions.
Lorien and Lothric are the sons of Oceros, the king of the Lothric kingdom.
After going mad in his pursuit of Ocelot, the old king secluded himself in the depths of Lothric's garden, leaving the brothers alone.
Lothric was born with a curse that weakened him physically. Seeing this, his older brother Lorien shared in his curse, lessening his burden.
The brothers refused to become lords and stayed in the tallest tower, watching the flames slowly fade.
Little is known about Sullivan's past.
He came from Irithyll, a frigid and mysterious city. Sullivan usurped the city's throne and proclaimed himself pontiff. He manipulated religion and politics to consolidate his rule. He ruled with an iron fist, using his influence to subjugate the inhabitants of Irithyll.
His eyes, adorned with rings, bestowed him with dark powers. Sullivan controlled the Abyss Watchers, a cursed order of warriors. They hunted abominations linked to the Abyss.
Sullivan allied with Aldrich, the devourer of gods, a hideous being that fed on deities. Together, they plotted to prolong the Age of Darkness. Sullivan imprisoned Gwyndolin, the last god of sunlight, atop Aina Londo, using him as a power source for his city. The nameless player discovers that Gwyn, the Lord of Sunlight, perpetuated the cycle to maintain his lineage. Fire and darkness are two sides of the same coin. The nameless player confronts the Soul of Cinder, an amalgamation of previous lords. The Soul of Cinder is a fusion of all the souls of the previous lords. It resides in the Soul of Cinder, the final boss of the game. The Soul of Cinder is a blend of combat styles, incorporating the abilities of all the Eshin lords, including the First Lord, the one who killed the dragons, Gwyn. As we will briefly talk about the Ring City DLC, I will touch on the most common ending of the base game. In this ending, the nameless player chooses to prolong the Age of Fire, sacrificing themselves to reignite the first flame. This perpetuates the cycle of light and darkness, but also maintains the curse and the world's imprisonment. The nameless player becomes a link in the eternal chain. The true outcome of the story occurs after the battle. Players encounter a woman named Filianor, the Forgotten Daughter, guarding an important object. By interacting with Filianor and shattering the illusion surrounding the city, players are transported to a distant and desolate future. Midir was originally a descendant dragon, a race of dragons initially allied with the gods, but eventually hunted by the gods due to their power.
Midir, however, was spared from this cruel fate through the intervention of a specific god who created and raised him.
This god saw potential in Midir and created him to be a guardian. Midir was trained to combat the forces of darkness and maintain peace in the world.
As a result, Midir became a staunch defender against the forces of the Abyss, representing uncontrolled darkness. Over the centuries, Midir fulfilled his role as a guardian, facing threats from the darkness. However, over time, the darkness began to corrupt him gradually.
This corruption is symbolized by the black abyss spreading throughout Midir's body. When players encounter Midir in the Ring City, he has become a fierce and powerful creature, but his original essence still remains. Players face Midir in a challenging battle where he utilizes fire, powerful bites, and darkness attacks.
The fight is a test of skill and patience, but as the player progresses, it is revealed that Midir, despite the corruption, still maintains a certain level of awareness of his original mission. Initially introduced as an NPC giving players a mission to find the Painted World, where they believe the dark soul of man is located, Gale is revealed to be one of the key figures in the quest for the Dark Soul. Throughout the expansion, players find clues about Gale's journey, revealing that he is a pigment hunter tasked with gathering the dark paint.
This paint is intended to create a new world that can withstand the apocalypse and the darkness consuming the Dark Soul's universe.
Gale is in search of the dark soul of man to use as pigment for this painting.
He goes through numerous battles and challenges to achieve this goal. When players finally encounter Gale at the end of the expansion, he is completely transformed. He has consumed the dark soul of so many beings that his appearance is grotesque, but his mission persists. The battle against Gale is intense and epic. He is one of the most challenging bosses in the game, reflecting his arduous journey and the enormity of his goal. At the end of the battle, players discover that Gale found the dark soul and used it as pigment to create a dark painting. Gale's ending is melancholic and tragic, but his role in the story adds an emotional dimension to the dark world of Dark Souls. His desperate quest for a new world through the dark painting highlights the inevitability of decline and the constant search for redemption or rebirth in the game's universe. The game's story ends with Gale's lady painting the canvas of the new world from the dark soul that Gale obtained. And there you have it. If you have feedback, whether positive or negative, please leave it in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe to the channel to receive more videos like this one. Stay tuned for an upcoming video about the story of Elden Ring, and until next time.